Welcome to the MedLink Health Connection podcast. I'm your host, Angela, and today we have a very special guest. I'm pleased to introduce Ann Whitaker, a registered and licensed dietitian, nutritionist, and certified diabetes care and education counselor here at MedLink, Georgia. Ann specializes in diabetes, weight management, heart health, and more for patients of all ages. And maintaining a healthy weight is a common goal, but with so much information out there, it can be challenging to know what really works. Today, we will discuss these challenges and share principles for success to help you overcome them. So, Ann, why do you think it is so hard to lose weight and then even harder to keep the weight off?
Oh, well, thanks for inviting me and asking that question because, first of all, if it was easy, all of us would have already done it.
Very true, very true.
It's not easy, and it takes a lot of time and energy. Understanding that whatever you do to lose weight should be how you plan to keep it off is a great start. Weight loss is like a rehearsal. Whenever I approach someone, I have a different way sometimes of having people think through what they're doing. You want to think about when you rehearse for a play, you don't rehearse one way and then on the opening night of the play, change all the lines and the scenes in the play. You rehearse for it the exact same way you perform it. But sometimes we do weight loss, rehearse it, and then we'll say, well, just be careful after that, after we've lost the weight. And the problem is we've never practiced being careful. We've only practiced dieting or not dieting. So it's so easy to go back to what we used to do because, quote, we're done with the dieting. That's just one thing. You want to practice what you plan to do for good. So I always say, is this something you can live with for the rest of your life? If the answer is no, don't waste a lot of time practicing it. I also think that people don't realize how much stress and low amounts of sleep and being in a hurry and unreasonable expectations have on this. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
Everything you said is very true. I definitely feel like it's just something that we get so stuck in, and a lot of people don't approach it kind of as a lifestyle change, and they do it temporarily and then they're like, I hate this, so they're obviously not going to do it as a complete lifestyle change. Do you think there are any ways to approach weight loss that works better than others?
I do. I kind of have some different ideas on that. And one of them is first understanding that your weight goes up and down all day long, and that's normal for everyone. So just, first of all, realize that if I drank 16 ounces of water, I would gain 1 pound.
No.
But it's not fat. I mean, 16 ounces weighs a pound. I mean, that's just, reality. But one of the things I think is it's not just about what you do, the behaviors. It's about the mind behind those, the thoughts behind those behaviors that can support those changes. There's a lot of behind the scenes kind of reprogramming of what we think and not just what we do. It's kind of just a mindset difference.
What are some of those mindset principles you feel are important for success?
Well, I guess one of the main ones is set out to succeed. Make it easier to do. Make it easier to be successful. First of all, think about if you go grocery shopping when you're super hungry, what happens?
You buy all the food.
Right. So, we know when we're super hungry, we make poor decisions. But I have so many people who say, you know what, I just don't eat all day long. I eat one meal a day. And they expect to do a really good job at that meal. Well, we can't even do a good job at the grocery store when we're too hungry. Imagine being super hungry and sitting down to a meal and thinking you're going to be in control. So you want to set out to succeed. You want to eat regularly during the day so that you are not overly hungry, because you can't make good decisions when you're too hungry. We know that. Now, one of the other things is don't try to keep everything in your house that you're trying not to eat and expect yourself to control yourself. It's like, how is that going to help, especially if you get super hungry? You want to keep things in the house that help you be on track. You want things to be there. And people will say, well, I have other people in the house and I don't want to penalize them. And I say, how is keeping healthy food in the house a penalty? The mindset we have about this has really shifted. Keeping
Mm-hmm.
healthy things in the house does not mean that you're penalizing people. you know, if you want to have, something, it's a choice. It's not because you deserve it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Another thing is you want to expect to do better, but not perfect. Think about if you had kids in school, or if you're in school or been in school. If you had you didn't do so well on a test, would you just say, you know what? I didn't do so well, so I'm going to try really hard. I made an F. I'm going to try really hard to make an F on purpose in my next 3 tests, because who cares now? It doesn't matter. You would never take that approach for school. You would never give it advice to anyone. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the advice we often give ourselves. I've blown it. I may as well blow it the rest of the day and start over tomorrow. It's like, you would never tell your kid that. Oh, you have 2 tests today, you failed one. Try really hard, intentionally go out and set a goal to fail your next one. But that's
Mm-hmm.
the same advice you're giving yourself about, expecting to do better, not perfect. So if a person doesn't make straight A's, you don't tell them to drop out of school. You tell them to keep going, do the best they can, make their best effort. So that's a big one to me, expect to do better. And then another one is develop a new reward system. How often do we say, I've been doing so good on my eating plan or my quote diet, I deserve a piece of whatever cheesecake it would be for me, for example.
I love, yes.
So a big part of this is you could never reward yourself with what you're trying to change, because you'll never change it. Think about a little toddler you're teaching not to play in the street. You would never say, "Oh, Johnny, you've been such a good little boy. You haven't played in the street. Your reward is to play in the street." That is so illogical. So you don't want to use the thing as, "I've been so good. I haven't eaten any cake. I haven't eaten any cheesecake the whole time I've been dieting. So you know what? I deserve a piece of cheesecake." The problem isn't that you might eat a piece of cheesecake. That is really not the problem. The problem is you are using it as a reward. You are trying to use the very thing you're trying to do better at as a reward for doing better. That is so illogical in our mind that we will not do well past that.
Mm-hmm.
If you decide you want a piece of cheesecake, it is your decision. It's a choice. Own the decision, be okay with it. Move on from there. It's fine. You have the rest of your life to work on this. It's not a one and done and you're over. And then one of the last things to me is be realistic. Don't expect it to be as fast as you hope it is. In a job, if you did a really good job today, would you ever run into your boss's office and say, "Hey, I did a really good job. Can I get a raise?" They'd look at you like, maybe sometime in the future. I mean, and then let's say you did a really good job tomorrow on your job again. Would you run into his office again or her office and say, "Hey, I did a good job today. Can I have another raise?" The boss would begin to think, well, there's something up here. But we do that to ourselves. I did such a good job on my diet. I deserve to see weight loss on my scale.
Mm-hmm.
You won't. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But just like in a job, you don't quit your job because you don't get a raise every day. You don't quit doing the right thing and making efforts to change your eating just because you don't see the results on the scale. And I think that's part of our issue. So you want to be very realistic, be kind to yourself. If you had a bad day, you had a bad day. If you had a bad week, you had a bad week. But move on and be very honest. If someone says, "Hey, would you like a piece of whatever?" and you really would like a piece of it, but you don't want to eat it right now, you're okay to not eat it, say, "It looks fabulous, but I'm choosing not, I'm going to right now not eat that. I'm choosing not to eat that right now, but it looks fabulous. Thank you for offering." If you say things like, "No, I can't eat that. I'm on a diet," inside you will be setting up an untruth. Your
Mm-hmm.
brain knows you want it, and you're saying what you're saying doesn't even match what's in your brain. And it's going to be very hard to be successful. And you'll start doing things like sneaking food so that others won't see you. And then the last thing is for this thing is be careful how much power you give to other people. If someone says, hey, how much you look like you've lost weight. Oh my gosh, what kind of diet are you on? The best answer I think you could give someone is, oh, I'm not on a diet. I'm making some changes in the way I eat and the way, my life's set up. And they say, how many pounds have you lost? The best answer is, I'm not keeping up with that exactly. I'm just trying to make changes. And if someone says, hey, if you're on a diet, you shouldn't be eating that. And so what happens is, oh my gosh, you've given them a whole bunch of power and they're making you feel guilty. You already feel guilty. You're not going to be successful. Instead, you're making changes. And when they say, what are you doing? You shouldn't be eating that. Your answer should be, you know what? I don't have to be perfect, but I have to be, working on it. And that's what I'm doing. I'm working on doing the best job I can. Those are kind of some of my things.
I love that because I'm sitting here like taking notes, like, okay, so go home and do this, because I definitely feel like it's such a challenge. And I feel like dieting is so negative filled nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just seems like a negative thing. Like, oh, they're on a diet, they can't eat that. Like, everything that comes with being on a so-called diet is negative. And if you kind of take a look at it from a more of a positive lifestyle change approach, I definitely think you would have more success than that negative energy. Because even on the inside, you feel not really wrong, but it's just like dreadful. I guess you could say the word. Like, you're just like, well, I gotta eat a salad for lunch today.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts? We covered a lot today, and it's been amazing advice. I'm literally gonna go home and like take all of this myself because I'm currently trying to have this lifestyle change, and I'm like, but I really like cake.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that's a real good question. So I guess some of the last things is, sometimes people get off track and they have a really bad day, a really bad week or whatever, and they figure they've blown it. They may as well just give up and, like drop out of school, quote unquote. That'd be like, you would never give that advice. I would say, if you blew it, rather than saying, you know what, I blew it, I may as well blow it the rest of the day and start over tomorrow. I say, so what? You blew it. Big deal. You have the rest of your life to work on this. There is no race, no rush, because the faster you get through with, quote, getting to the weight you want, the longer you have to maintain it. And maintaining it is harder. What's going to make this different, what's going to make, with how the rubber meets the road is that your attitude that you approach this with has to be different than anything you've ever done before. You have to be willing to say, you know what, I do want a piece of cake. And you know what, sometimes you're going to say, I want a piece of cake, but I'm not going to eat it. Sometimes you're going to say, I want a piece of cake, by golly, and I'm going to eat it. But your goal is to do, how can I make this better than usual? And it may be that instead of having a 3-inch slice of cake, you have a 2-inch slice of cake and you enjoy the daylights out of it. It could be that you say, you know what, I want a piece of cake. And if you find yourself eating an entire jar of peanut butter to avoid eating a piece of cake and you still want a piece of cake, my goodness, it would have been so much better for you to have gotten a piece of cake. Because then what you could do is you could go to a grocery store and you could get a slice of cake. You don't have to buy a whole cake to enjoy a piece of cake. And as a matter of fact, that's a real important principle. If you want to do something and you're going to do something, one of the rules of thumb I have is buy enough only for right now, never enough for later. Mm-hmm. I have patients sometimes that will tell me that they bought a big bag of chips because they knew they'd want chips. I said, so what you're telling me is you want chips right now and you're planning your future ability to eat more chips based on you want to, quote, fail in the future. You're planning to make it hard to make a good decision because it's going to be right there. Yeah. If you decide you want some chips later, go and get another small bag from the grocery store and eat it. But don't ever have enough for later, and don't keep it there at the house because you might want it later. It makes it too easy. I want you to have a time to pause, to think about, is that really what I want? If it is, go get enough just for now. But it's going to be more money. Yep. More time because you have to get in the car and ride somewhere to go get it. And I want you to have that time, because sometimes you'll come up with the answer, no, I really don't want it that bad. And then the last thing I'd say is try to eat most of the time in your kitchen or in a place where you are not watching TV or, getting distracted by other things, because so often you look down and you didn't enjoy it at all because you were doing something else. Enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy it. So that's, those are kind of, a little different way to approach it.
No, I
And
love
that's how I
all
do
of that. No, I like that approach a lot better. It's definitely different from the advice I feel like everywhere else kind of provides in a way, because it gives you a different look on it. And I really, actually really like that a lot, because even I eat while I'm watching TV, or
All
my
of us
boyfriend
do.
is notorious for having to watch something, and I'm like, can we please just talk while we eat or something? Like, do we have to watch
Yeah,
TV? And I definitely feel like even when you do that and then eat, if when you don't enjoy it, maybe later you're like, okay, well, I'm still hungry, because you really didn't focus on eating either. So you don't really have that mind and body connection of I ate and I thought about eating. So you're
right.
thinking about it later.
And probably this is probably the last advice I'd give someone. We give the scales a lot of power, and it's a piece of metal.
We do.
It's an important piece of information, but it's not all there is about you. You're more than that. You are a sister, you're a brother, you're a friend, you're a teacher, you're a daughter, you're a son, you're a coach. And if you give the weight 90% of the power, you become totally, dependent on what the scales tell you for your self-worth. And you've got to put that in perspective with the whole rest of your life. And if you do that, you will probably, I'm not going to say you're going to be 100% getting exactly to what you want, but you'll be in a better place. And it's a lot of work. That's probably my final thought on that.
I love it. Thank you. No, all of this is amazing. Just great advice. I feel like it'll definitely be so useful for so many people, and they should
Mhm.
definitely come see you more so that they can get more in-depth advice.
I don't
Because
know.
I love the approach to it all. Every time I've talked to one of the dietitians here, I really feel like I have this concept in my mind of, okay, you go to them, they're going to tell you to eat healthy. That's just about it. But every single time I speak to you or Jenny, it's totally the complete opposite of what is like portrayed. I'm like, oh, these are like kind of like a therapist, but more so with that mindset of food, because it is such a, I guess, kind of like a toxic relationship that you have sometimes, or it's
Yeah,
just, and it's so complex.
it
And
is.
I definitely feel like it's such a great service that we have here, and such great advice that you guys always all give.
What you just said is so true. What we do, what dietitians, registered and licensed dietitian nutritionists do, is we provide medical nutrition therapy. It's called MNT. That's exactly what we do.
I love it. And I definitely think that's something that people don't realize.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
very, it's different
yeah,
sometimes.
it is
It's like
different.
a different look on it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today to kind of sit down and talk about some amazing advice and just some great ideas, and, a different outlook on everything, especially with all that is out there in today's society. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the MedLink Health Connections podcast. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider for any medical concerns. Stay connected with us on social media and visit our website at medlinkga.org for more resources and updates. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.